What's up, folks? Casual Dad here, and next up in our Warhammer Combat Cards Warlord guides, well, I got it right, is Skulltaker, the Herald of Khorne himself. Khorne's a mortal champion. This guy is awesome. Comes in at 32 points with 240 health, which is higher than the ones we've been looking at, but we're going to see that start creeping up in the next few Warlords, so he's still on the squishier side, and hyper aggressive. Epic comes stock with Furious Charge, which of course combos with his ability that we'll see in a second, and then has for his secondary trait Berserk, which always cracks me up because he doesn't have that many hit points and he maxes out at rank 2 Berserk, so it's gravy, but it's practically never going to have any meaningful impact on the game. But really good melee attack stat, has that Furious Charge, but the of course signature piece of Skulltaker is his ability. If after attacking an enemy card with a melee attack, the opponent's card would be left on 25 or less health, it is instead destroyed. So if you hit a card with 5 melee damage and it had 30, that will kill it outright. If you do lethal damage to an Acheron card with melee, it'll come back with its second life and then be executed. It is an excellent ability that really does supercharge melee in the Chaos Space Marines faction, which is a faction that already likes melee, and I really love the way this plays. The thing about it too is that it is hyper aggressive, but it's also much more strategic than the other Chaos Space Marines Warlords. That's one thing I really enjoy about it, is it's this wanton, brutal, bloodsheddy, corny thing, but at the same time there's a really deep element of strategy, which is also very true to Khorne in lore as well. So I'm all about it. I love it. Deck builds with him are fairly straightforward, as you might expect. You have a lot of Khorne cards. The Bloodletter is a great choice just to start out, because Deathblow also counts as a melee attack. So he's 3 points, which is dirt cheap, and then he will both deal melee damage here, and then also will deal melee damage on Deathblow as well. So if you drop this guy, it's 3 points, you hit an opposing card for 34 damage, he then Deathblows again for, call it, 40 damage. You've done 74 damage total, and then if the card has 100-ish or so health or less, that will kill it, and your 3-point card has just killed a much more powerful card. So that's definitely something to think about. Of course, your taunt cards help keep your power pieces in play. Outflank is always handy to help fill things up, and all of these cheap little cards are so much more dangerous in a Skulltaker deck because you just add 25 to their effective melee damage in specific cases. But most cases, you're going to see them hitting dramatically harder. Of course, Target Acquired is an excellent piece for Skulltaker. You, of course, do want to focus on your melee cards, but they don't have to be just melee. They can also do range damage as well. Medic is a helpful piece. There's another Target Acquired. Melee Ready is a very useful piece. Any of your Khorne cards, I really enjoy throwing them in there. This one is always a surprise to me. The Skull Cannon, like, the starting stats are terrible, but it's got a lot of hit points and is decently cheap, so it does end up with a pretty significant amount of damage by the time it goes down. I've always been shocked at how well this thing performs, especially once you get that Berserk up to rank 3 or higher. Once you get rank 9, Lucius is also an excellent piece because he's usually, the downside of him is he's fairly expensive for a pretty middling melee attack, but if that's an effective 75 melee attack, that's a whole different ballgame, especially being endless, and especially once you hit rank 9, having that Furious Charge twice. Because if an endless card is Furious Charge, when the second copy comes out, it immediately charges for a melee attack, which is awesome. Regen is good too, but Furious Charge and Shields are some really good pieces. Shields and Fear. Now, when I was starting out with Skulltaker and really laddering with him early on, this guy was a staple of my deck because he has decent melee, but mostly he has shields to hold up a lane and be really powerful in your deck. Now, I've kind of hit critical mass to the point where I can be far more aggressive than I was in the past, and so now I'm ranking up. You can use cards like Khorne the Betrayer, who takes a while to rank up because he has very low health for as aggressive as you want him to be, but once you get him to rank 9 or so, he becomes an absolute unstoppable death machine, who is excellent in a Khorne deck, Skulltaker deck, excuse me. And then also, of course, your Fear cards are really good, especially these two here. This guy, once you get a decent rank Fear, is exceptional for the hit points in Fear, and this guy as well, extremely dangerous for those hit points in Fear. I'm again running a bit more of an aggressive deck. I usually shy away from these guys because they're a little bit on the pricier side, except for the Bloodthirster. Once you get this guy up to over 100, once you get that rank 8 on his melee damage, or even rank 6 on his melee damage, he becomes a really powerful piece and just really pushes through and is able to push through the damage to where you can actually compete with just him. And then, of course, I do have the cheaper of the shielded cards in here, again, to just hold down a lane. And this guy right here is, I think I've mentioned this before, one of the single best cards in the entire Chaos Space Marines faction. For that price, for those hit points, for that melee damage, exceptional. Especially once you get over, I think, 50 or 60 melee damage. Yeah, so right there, your level 7 is your sweet spot. 8, 9, and 10 just being absolute gravy. He is a scary piece of work for the amount of damage he does effectively and how long it takes to remove him for the cost. Of course, you have that Furious Charge to finish off injured cards and nail things from side lanes, hitting at a decent melee hit for 8 points already, but then also on top of Skulltaker's ability is a really powerful piece. Now I'm going to go ahead and play a couple games, and I am actively laddering with Chaos, so now that I've talked up how great my deck is and how good I am with Skulltaker, watch me just lose. But we'll look at it. Before I do that, a couple other quick pieces. This guy is also a really terrific value for the points. For 11 points, you get a really exceptional melee card with Fear that actually hits pretty hard in melee, and it hits even harder because Skulltaker. Great one to consider, especially when you're starting out. This guy being common is faster to level than most of the cards I've highlighted so far. And then likewise, I got a lot of mileage out of poison cards because those will soften up opponents, and most of the Nurgle cards that do heavy poison also do heavy ranged as well. So they're a really great combo to soften up opponents before you hit them with melee to finish them off. This guy being a really strong one I like to bring up as well, especially at about this range. He's got really good attack stats going along with that poison. All right, we'll go ahead and dive in. We'll see if I can get that graphic to load so you can actually see Skulltaker in all his gory glory. But like I said, his ability is fairly straightforward, but then, oh, perfect. But then in play, you do find that it is somewhat strategic. You have to kind of figure out where you want to hit, when do I ready? How do I take out, and oh, and we've got an almost 3k Acheran deck. Ooh, boy, okay. Let's see what we got here. I just did the Acheran guide, so this is timely to see this, and I should have swapped those. This guy could comfortably take that guy down to, without flank, I can comfortably take that guy down to lethal, but, well, actually, no. So this is actually good, because I would have triggered Skulltaker's ability, but then it would have come back with 5 health, as opposed to being gone because I overkilled it. So it is a very good idea when you get the chance to overkill cards when you are playing Skulltaker versus Acheran. My god, that's a lot of shields. Okay. This is a good companion to my Acheran guide. You can just fill the board with shields and do exactly what he's doing here. But what I'm going to end up doing is readying and counterattacking until I'm able to punch straight through those shields. Excuse me, which I can't do because this dude is most obnoxious, and I should have mentioned him in the Space Marine guide because you usually don't use the melee attack type with Space Marines. And so he pretty much always ends up melee debuffing you the whole game, which just is infuriating. Not going to deny he's a good piece, but ooh, obnoxious. How many shields he got left? He's got 1 shield left, which is pretty impressive considering he started with max shields. We'll go here. Oof. Ouch. It's a high-level Acheran. Yuck. One caveat I will say about Acheran decks, especially like the one we're looking at right now, is that they are very slow. If you're relying on your shields to do the majority of damage for you, it's going to take all day. I do about 60 damage on that Furious Charge, so bam. And that should give me enough to finish off this guy in the middle. We'll see how that guy on the left does. But I've already lost quite a few cards getting this far. Ooh, nice. Okay. Take him out too. And I still have my Bloodthirster, and I didn't get the Furious Charge target acquired against the Bloodthirster, which is great. That guy should be pretty easy to take out. He's probably going to shoot me, which he did. But still, the thing to remember against an Acheran deck is that you do have to deal with Acheran himself eventually, which is extremely challenging unless you have kind of overwhelming force on the board, which I probably will here. Take this guy out in the middle outright. I still have my Fear guy, which will really help hold down a lane, and of course I still have my Bloodthirster as well. You've seen several times where the Bloodthirster's 140 has really been key in punching that final damage through, which really makes a big difference. That's kind of why I've rebuilt this deck most recently the way that I did, was to really get the most out of him as an absolute power piece. Now, where I'm most concerned, actually, is that these lanes will actually hold me down enough. No, I should be okay. Yeah, I was really hoping for lethal on that one. That Acheron will be able to finish off Skulltaker before I can get at him from the wings. And let's see how many shields he's got. He's got 3. All right, could be worse. Not by much, but it could be worse. And I've got Furious Charge, so now he has 2. But the other thing, too, is he's got such an incentive to do range damage that he's not going to hit me from melee unless he's in really good space. So I have to take these shields down real quick. Now this is good because I will take down both of his bodyguards. He will have 1 shield left, so I think I got him. But it still is close because he's got a charged ability. But I have a ranged attack on the board with my dear friend Khazar, so that'll take out that last shield. I got him. Okay. Whew, man, that was a lot of shields. But that was a perfect matchup. I'm going up against a 3k Acheron deck full of shields, and you can really see exactly how powerful Skulltaker's ability is against a deck like that. With any other deck that I have in the wing in my arsenal, I would have been much less confident going into that fight than with my Skulltaker. So that was, whew, man, that's a good one. We'll do another one, just so you can see if I go up against another matchup, but hopefully that was a good match to see. Any second now. There we go. All right. Badrock, sweet. Okay, the other meta monster. Now this may be a tougher matchup, and this is actually the reasons I have Gorderbon, a shielded card, and a Greater Demon in my deck, so that I can deal with, so that I can tank the firepower I would take from a Badrock to make it through to the end game. Ooh. And now really I should, no, I'm going first, that's not great. I should have a taunt card in here to kind of help with this kind of stuff. I'm going pretty, you know what, to the wall, aggressive here, which can be very effective, but can also really cost you in game. It's going to shoot me, of course. What level is this? Oh god, high. This is also a pretty unusual Badrock deck, and so I'm not really sure what to make of it, but it's thin, so I don't have to get through that much to pull Badrock himself, so I will have a shot to take him down. Okay, alright, I can deal with this. I say that. So that's shields down. Yikes. So we're talking about getting strategic. Yikes. Okay, so this guy does not have a melee attack. This guy does, so my shields will last longer against that, but I'm not certain that's really going to make the difference. He's got a lot of hit points, so he's got really high melee damage as well. That melee ready will really help. And Makari has a range debuff. Let's go ahead and try to hit really hard. Now I'm trying to stay alive as long as possible and be really efficient with my cards, because I could easily run out of steam here before I'm able to actually take these things down. Yeah, and see, after that I have to do melee, or I'm about to lose both of these cards anyway. And it's not going to be enough. I think he's got me. Kind of. How many shields I got left? 1. Yeah, that's another wipe. Okay, that's unfortunate. But now my saving grace here is the Furious Charge from Skulltaker is going to kill the plane in the middle. What is my last? I don't know if that's going to be enough to give me. So that'll give me a melee buff, which is good. If I can get Badrock by himself, which I think I just maybe can, between these two hitting that guy over there, and I have a shot. I do. I got him. Woo, sweet. I also got to say, that is a case where I'm really glad they just changed the trait, the secondary trait on that thing from Death Blow to Shields, because Death Blow would have just straight up killed me. This may still... oh, yuck. Okay. But here's where I get a little bit frustrated with Badrock, because Badrock himself, I think his stats are too good. And I've already done a guide on him, but for 36 points, having almost 300 hit points on a ranged Warlord is super high. Like, I don't have what it takes to kill him right now, and I have to, because he hit me. He's going to hit me for another, like, 80 damage. So yeah, brutal. Woof, a 4-card Badrock deck just beat the crap out of me. Okay, but there you can kind of see the downside of playing fully aggressive. If I'd had more shields in the deck, more poison, maybe I could have done better against that, but is what it is. Win some, you lose some. But so that was the Immortal Champion of Khorne, the Skulltaker. Hopefully that was helpful, and holler if you have any questions.